say,
Without further ado, here's Miss Yvette Chuka on navigating your Webassign and MyMathLab courses, graphs of equations, and writing equations. Thank you, Ms. Chuka.
hello everyone. Thank you for being here. So every Friday we will be having a Friday Happy Math Hour where we'll be covering topics for that week that are covered in your classes. And so this week we're looking at graphs of equations and writing equations, and also just how to navigate your Webassign and MyMathLab courses. So if you're taking Math 1314 or 314 or 114, then you will be using Webassign. If you're taking 1324, 324, or 124, then we'll be looking at MyMathLab. So the first part of their presentation will cover both, and then we'll go into the actual math concepts. So for Webassign, if your instructor provides you with a class key, then you would click on Enter Class Key here to register. And for some of you, you would just go through your Blackboard course. Your Blackboard course and your Webassign are linked together. And so you'll see a Webassign registration link in your Blackboard course. So either way, that's how you will sign up. So here is what a class key would look like. And again, if you're in Blackboard, then you don't need this class key. Okay, so if you purchase a new textbook at the bookstore, then it does include an access code, which you will need. If you did not purchase a textbook, then you can always purchase the access code online. So when you're ready to purchase online, you do have two options. One, you could buy just the homework and the ebook for the class, and that's going to cost $100. Or if you're taking other classes, for example, if you're taking a business class that uses the Cengage textbook, then you can pay $119, and it's going to include your business class textbook plus your math textbook. If you had a psychology class using using Cengage, then that would also be included. So this would give you access to all the textbooks that you need if your class is using a Cengage textbook. Once you register, if you can't pay for the access code or you don't have one from the bookstore, then you still want to open your course. You do have 7 to 14 days for free. And so I encourage everybody to register on your first day so that you can start with the assignments so that you don't fall behind. Once you're in your account, then you can click on courses to access your Webassign course. And you can also see some other things here that I'm going to cover. And so, for example, in your name, you can change your password by clicking your name, or you can add another email. So if you want messages to go to a different email, you can do that. All your courses will be listed here if you click on this button. And then you also have an option of renting an actual hard copy textbook. So you can click on this button and follow the steps. This symbol here will give you a chance to look at the catalog of all the textbooks that are available for you to browse if you did pay that $119. And then you also have this little graduation hat, which gives you different videos and resources for skills that you want to master. So for example, if you feel like you need more information on health and wellness or critical thinking, you can definitely use these. And once you're in your Webassign course, you can change the language. So if you prefer the text to be in Spanish, you can click this symbol here, and that's going to change everything to Spanish with the exception of the questions, but the instructions will be the ones that change into Spanish. And this symbol here, I do encourage you to turn on your notifications. And what that means is, let's say, for example, if I change a due date for an assignment, and if you have this selected, it's going to email you to let you know that I've changed a due date. If you, it's going to also provide you reminders for your classes or for your assignments. Your ebooks are located at the top right, and I'm going to cover some other things here. Here, your communication, you can send an email to your instructor. If your grades would tell you what your current grade is, sometimes this is off, depending on your instructor, if they want it on or off. And then you'll see all your assignments. So in the next page here, you can see some of the announcements and resources. So I'm going to go over some of these. So when you log into your class, you'll see your home page with your assignments. The right side, you'll have resources. And these resources, depending on your instructor, might not be available. So you can always ask them if they can turn them on. And basically, these resources are videos or PowerPoints from the textbook. And the personal study plan is a good way to refresh your skills. They'll give you a practice quiz or a tutorial on a certain topic for that chapter. And so this is only like for your personal study. These symbols that you'll see on some of the assignments, this one here means that you have a prerequisite, which means you need to get a certain grade before you can take this quiz. This one means that the assignment has a password on it. And then this is the timer. So if an assignment has a time, then you have a timer there. And then this symbol means that the lockdown browser is required. So some of us use this when taking exams. So once you're in the actual homework assignment, you're going to see some of these tools here. This one right here, ask your teacher. I like this tool when my students use it because it sends me the question that the student is working on, and then I can see exactly what the question is so that I can better help you. Some of the questions will have a read it, which sends you to the ebook, and some have a watch it, which is a video of the question or a similar question. So that was just a little brief overlook of Webassign. So for those of you taking MyMathLab, same thing. To register, you would go to mymathlab.com. You'll click on student. You need these three things in order to register. You're going to be provided a course ID from your instructor. And so that's going to look like, for example, it might say Chuka and then followed by some numbers. You're going to need your email address, and then you're going to need an access code, which comes with the textbook, or you can pay for it online as well. Okay, so once you sign in, it's going to tell you what the course is here, and it's going to show you who it's taught by. And so you can always double check to make sure you're in the right class. And again, this is just the access codes. You can pay for it here if you want a 18 weeks or if you want a 24 months. So they give you options on how many months you want to pay for. If you're not able to pay for it at that moment, you still get a temporary access for 14 days. So you can start your assignments before you have to pay. And then that's going to send you to your course. You're done there. Once you're in your course, then you're going to see there's a calendar for you with all the assignments listed. This button here, Multimedia Library, is very useful because you can select a chapter and you can select all the media types. So if you want to see the videos or PowerPoints or any type of activity, you just select them here and it's going to give you that resource. And then the study plan is a way for you to also practice on your own. And so you can look at this, for example, identifying type of numbers. You can practice and then you can ask for a quiz. This is not graded as part of your assignments, but it does help you to prepare. Here we have accessible resources. So you might have the PowerPoint slides, video transcripts, and so on. You do have something called Skills for Success, and I encourage you to look through these because they are very helpful. So for example, you have a mindset one. So do you have a growth mindset? They go over what that means, the power of making mistakes, and so on. So these are really interesting to watch. And under college success modules, You'll have things like time management, stress management. So these are all here to help you in case you want to look through them. Or let's say you're looking at professionalism tools. So this will help you with sample interview questions and so on. Okay, so the last one, tools for success. This one will provide you with different tools, like for example, for technology, how to use your calculator. It has study cards and so on. Okay, so once you're in your homework, if you click on question help, you're going to have these 4 options. They can be removed by your instructor, so you might not see view an example, for example, so it depends on your instructor. And then on this little tool here, you have your accessibility or on-screen keyboard. So to help me solve this, the way it works is if you click on it, it's going to count it wrong. And then it's going to show you how to solve this question. And then once you're ready, you can try another one to get the credit for the question. View an example is a step-by-step example of how to do the problem. Then you have videos for each of the sections. And with the videos, one of the things is that you can also put the captions in Spanish or in English. So here's an example of an ebook. Anywhere you see these little signs, it's going to play a video for that section or that topic. Okay, so that was just a very quick overview of MyMathLab and Webassign. And so for the rest of the time, what I want to do is cover some of the topics that you have seen this week in your class. And then we just go through them at any time. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at graphing equations, and I'm just going to provide 2 examples on point plotting and XY intercepts. And then later in the semester, you'll look at something called transformations of graphs, and we might cover that in another different Friday happy hour. Oops, I went too fast. So, okay, so the point plotting method is the first method that we see in really any of our classes when we're trying to graph. And the idea here is that you create a table. And so you're going to have some values for X. We're going to find values for Y. And then we're going to put them into an ordered pair. So in these examples, the X is the independent variable, which means that we're going to choose any value we want for X, whatever value you want. So it could be 100, 200, and so on. But we're going to talk about some values that we can use to make our graph easier to view. So once you pick those values, you want to make sure that you include some negative, some positive, and then you also want to include 0 if you're able to. Once we choose them, then we're going to substitute those chosen values into the equation, and we're going to simplify. So for X, as I mentioned, you can choose anything you like. I always pick -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. If you wanted to pick 200, 100, you could, but it's kind of nice to keep it simple. That way you can have a better graph that doesn't have big numbers and might make it harder to graph. So again, as I mentioned in the last slide, you want to have some negative, some positive, and a 0. So how many points do you need? It really depends on what type of graph you have. If you have a line, which you'll learn about later throughout the semester, you'll be able to identify just by looking at an equation if it's a line, if it's a circle, if it's a parabola. For now, this is going to be a line. For a line, you would just need 2 points. But if you're not sure what the equation is, then I encourage you to pick between 4 to 5 points. Okay, so once you have your points, then we're going to take the equation and we're going to substitute the value of X into all the X's. So here's an X. So instead of this X, I'm going to replace it with a -2. So -2 times -2 is +4, plus the 5 will give me a 9. So my ordered pair is going to be a -2 and a 9. And so I would do the same for -1. I'm going to substitute -1 times -2, and then I'm going to add 5. So we get 2 plus 5 is equal to 7. And our order pair would be -1 and 7. And then for 0, we do the same, substitute the x for 0. So we get -2 times 0, and then we add the 5. Okay, so my order pair would be 0 and 5. And I keep doing the same for the rest of the points. I substitute at the 1. Negative times 1 is -2, plus 5 is 3. And -2 times 2 is -4 plus 5, which is equal to 1. So once you have all your ordered pairs, then we can plot them. So for example, -2 and 9 is going to be located here. And I do the same for the rest of the points, right? And since it does say to graph the equation, it didn't say to plot the points, right? We want to graph it. Then we connect the points. And I'm connecting them with this straight line. And since we could pick any x that we want, we could pick 1,000,000 for x. Then we need to represent that on the graph using these arrows, meaning that we can just pick any x that we want. Okay, so that is an example of point plotting. So let's go to the next example. So here we have y equals 5 minus x squared. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick some points for x. Notice that I chose the same points. And now I'm going to plug in my x, -2, for x. So y is equal to 5. -2 squared is +4. But then we have the negative here. So we end up with -4 is equal to 1. So my point is -2 and 1. And if I try the next one, we get a -1 squared, which is going to be a 1. So 5 minus 1 would be 4. So my order pair is going to be -1 and 4. Okay, so go ahead and try the next one if we plug in 0 and see what we get. And if you want to put your answer, you can on the chat. So we plug in 0. Oops, I forgot I had it all there. So you see the answer there, but it's okay. So 0 squared is 0. So we have 5 minus 0 is 5. And then here we substitute the 1. Then we get 5 minus 1 is 4. And we substitute the 2. We get 2 squared is 4. So we get a 1. So these are all of our ordered pairs for this problem. If we plot them, then they look like this, right? So now it's a little bit harder to connect them with a line, but we go ahead and connect them anyways. And once we connect them, we're going to get this parabola. Okay. So again, right now, it might be new to you, but later in the semester, once you see this, you'll be able to recognize that this graph is going to have this shape. Okay. And so that's the beauty of math, right? Once you start getting familiar with it, then you know what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so that was point plotting method. So that's not the only way to graph. There's other ways. And so the next one is using the x and y intercept. And so first, let's talk about what that means. So if you have a line, the point where the graph crosses the y-axis, so this right here, let me just write it down. Let's see. Let me use my mouse. So this right here is your y-axis, and this is your x-axis. Okay, so at the point where the graph is crossing the y-axis here, this is going to be called your y-intercept. And the point where the graph crosses the x-axis, that's going to be called your x-intercept. And so for the y-intercept, notice that the value of x is 0, and then you have a 3 for the y. And then for the x-axis, the value of x is -3. And since it didn't move up or down, then the y value is 0. And so that's what we're going to use when finding these x and y intercepts. So the x-intercept, you always want to remember that your y is going to be equal to 0. And then so you let y equal to 0, we solve for x. And then your y-intercept, we're going to let x equal 0 and solve for y. Okay, so let's look at the example here. If we want to find the x-intercept, we're going to let y equal 0. So here's my equation. I'm going to let y equal 0, and then I'm going to solve for x. So I'm going to subtract 5 on both sides, and I get negative 5 equals negative 2x. And so to solve for x, I'll divide by 2, negative 2 on both sides. So I end up with x is equal to 5/2. Okay, so this point here is my x-intercept, and now I'm going to find the y-intercept. So for the y-intercept, we let x equal 0. So anywhere you see an x, we let it be 0. Negative 2 times 0 is 0, plus 5 will be 5. So my y-intercept is 0 and 5. Excuse me. Okay, so once you have your two intercepts, then you can plot them. And if we connect them, then we'll have this line here. Okay, so the x and y intercept method works wonderful for anything that is a line, because all you need is 2 points to graph a line. However, if you had something that was quadratic, like the graph we had earlier, let me go over here. If you had something that was quadratic like this one here, then 2 points might make it more difficult to see what the graph is going to look like. So if something is quadratic or bigger than the x, if the power is not a 1 and it's something greater than 1, then you can still use the x and y intercept, but you're going to need to plot additional points. Okay, so let me go back. So let me stop here for a second. Is there any question on the x and y intercept method? Okay. So the next thing that you'll see if you're in 1314, this is section 1.3. If you're in 1324, I don't remember the section, maybe Mr. Isasi does. If you do, can you put it in the chat? But one of the important things of both classes is being able to write equations of a line, writing equations of other types of functions. But for now, we're going to be focused on a line. So a line can be written as ax plus by equals c, and that's called the general form. Or you'll see y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1, that's called the point slope form. Or you might see it as y equals mx plus b, and that's the y-intercept form. The third method, or the third form here, is what is used quite a bit. And so let's see what all this stuff means. Okay, so m represents slope. So m is the slope, and b is going to be the y-intercept. And the reason b is the y-intercept is, remember, if x is 0, then m times 0 would be 0, and we're left with just b. So these are the two things, or this is what these two things mean. Now, if you know what the slope is and you know what the y-intercept is, you can always write the equation if you remember this form here. Okay. And so let's do a couple of examples. So here it says, write the equation of a line with slope 4 and the y-intercept 5. Okay, so here they tell us that the slope is 4. So I can say that m is equal to 4. And they tell me that the y-intercept is 5. So that's going to be b is equal to 5. So anytime that they say write the equation, once you see this right here, oops, let me get the pencil here. Then if it says of a line, the first thing that you want to write down, if it helps, is y equals mx plus b. Okay, and then you can work from there. Okay, so once you know what m is 4, we can substitute it for the equation, and b is 5. So that was pretty simple, right? So they gave us the m, they gave us the 5, but it's not always as straightforward as that. So let's look at some other examples. So this is a little bit different here. Write the equation of a line with slope -2 and passes through the point 0, -4. Okay, so the question we want to ask ourselves is, do we know the slope? Do we know the intercept? So do we know the slope? Do they tell me what the slope is here? And you can put it in the chat if you like. Yes, right? So the slope is -2. Do they tell me what the intercept is? Do they say the y-intercept is this or this? They don't, right? However, do they give it to us? I know that seemed kind of a weird question because I'm basically asking the same thing. But what do we know about this point right here? So if we were to plot that point, it's going to be down here, and that's going to be called the what? The y-intercept. Okay. So since the x here is 0, then this makes this point the y-intercept. Okay. So although they didn't say this is the y-intercept, they did provide it for us. And so the y-intercept, oh, I went too fast. Let me see. Or maybe I erased it. Okay, so I'll just work it out there because I don't know what happened. So here m is -2, and my b is going to be -4. And the reason is that this is your y-intercept. Okay, so this is your b. So now that we have that, we can use the slope-intercept form. And so here they give me that my slope is -2. And then my b is -4. So instead of leaving it like this, plus a -4, we can write it as -4. Okay. Okay, so any questions on that? And we still had the slope, and we still had the y-intercept. It was just written in a different way. Okay, so let's look at another one. Write the equation of the line that passes through the points 1, -3, and 0, 4. So are we given the slope and the y-intercept? Which one can we identify just by looking at the question? So here we can see that they give us the y-intercept, right? So my y-intercept is going to be this right here. Okay, so they don't tell me what the slope is, but they give me enough information to find it. Okay, so the slope by formula, y2 minus y1 equals x2 minus x1. And so what I like to do when I'm first doing these is label these points, x1, y1, x2, y2, or you could have called this x2, y2 and x1, y1. So I'm just going to use what I have here. So my x2 is 4, so I'm going to write 4 minus y1, which is -3, divided by my x2, which is 0, minus my x1, which is 1. So if I simplify, negative and negative is positive. So 4 plus 3 is going to be 7, minus 1. 7 divided by -1 is -7. So I have my -7. We have our y-intercept, which is, okay, so my slope is -7, and my b is 4. So that's my equation of the line. Okay, let me go to another one. Write the equation of a line that passes through the points 2, 0, and -1, 4. Okay, so same question, right? We want to find the slope. So if we find the slope, we get y2 minus y1. y2 is 4. y1 is 0. So there's a mistake there. So let me just write it here. So y2 is 4 minus 0 for y1. And then we're going to divide by -1 minus 2. So 4 minus 0 is 4. And -1 minus -2 is -3. Okay. Any question on that one? Okay. So let me put an X here. So the next slides will probably be incorrect too, but we'll fix them as we go. So somebody remember the slope is -4/3 because once I click, it's going to disappear. Okay, so my y-intercept, is it 2, 0? And the answer is no, because this is not your y-intercept. This is actually your x-intercept. Okay, so we're going to need to find the y-intercept as well. Okay, so in order to find the y-intercept, what was the slope? -4/3, I think. Is that correct? Somebody remind me if that was the slope. Okay, cool. So once we notice here that we don't have the y-intercept, we need to find it. And there's 2 ways you can do this. You can use the, give me a second. Okay, so here we have y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. So we can use a point slope or the y-intercept form. And so that's just going to be up to you to decide which one you like or prefer. Okay, so we're going to choose one point. You can either pick this point or this point. Doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and pick the one that I circled. And then my slope, let me change it here, is -4/3. Okay, so here, let me just write it out. I'll just write it because y minus 0 is equal to our slope, -4/3, x minus 2. Okay, so if I solve for this, I can say y minus 0 is just y. I'm going to distribute my 4/3 in here. So I get -4/3 x. And negative times negative is positive. 4/3 times 2 is 8/3. So this would be my equation. Okay, if I use the other form, y equals mx plus b, then for y, I would substitute the 0. My slope is -4/3, and my x is 2 plus b. Okay, so -4/3 times 2 is -8/3 plus b. And so in this form, we're actually solving for b. So if I subtract -8/3, I get 8/3. And so that's not my answer, right? Because it didn't say to solve for b. I have to finish it up. And I'm going to write it up here by writing it as writing the equation, which y is equal to my slope, -4/3 x, plus my y-intercept, which I found here, is 8/3. And if you notice, both ways will give you the same answer. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, let me just skip through this since I worked it out with the wrong slope. Okay, so let's go to another one. Write the equation of a line that is parallel. So here they're asking for a line, and then they throw in this word parallel. To the line y equals -2x plus 4 and passes through the point -3 and 4. So let's look at what parallel means here. So right now, they're giving me this line, y equals -2x plus 4 is this line right here. And they want us to find another line that passes through the point -3, 4. Okay, so my line is either going to go like this or like this, but the key word here is parallel. So parallel means that the lines are going to run parallel next to each other, but they're never going to intersect each other. So what do we know about this black line here? We know the equation, and we know that the slope is -2. And for the red line here that we're looking for, all we know so far is that it passes through the point -3, 4. Okay, but parallel lines have the same slope. So that's something that is defined. And so what I can say for the second line now that we're looking for, I can say that m is equal to -2 because this line has a slope of -2. And since it's parallel, it's going to have the same slope. So I can take that information, -2, and the line passes through -3, 4. And now we can use either method. And so I'm going to use this method here. So I have y minus y1. My y1 is coming from the point 4. So I put my 4 here. And then my slope is -2. So I'm going to put -2. X minus x1, which is -3. So if we simplify, negative negative is positive. I'm going to distribute the 2 in the parentheses. Okay, so we're going to get -2 times x is -2x. -2 times 3 is -6. And I'm solving for y, so I'm going to add 4 on both sides. So y is going to be equal to -2x minus 2. And I don't think I worked it out the other way, but so this would be your answer here. Any questions on the parallel line? Okay. So the important thing here is when you see the parallel, then you know that the lines have the same slope. Or if they tell you that two lines have the same slope, then you can say that they're parallel. Okay, so write the equation of a line that is perpendicular. So now they're giving us this perpendicular. And it's the same equation, and it passes through the same point. So you have the same picture, but now the line is going to be perpendicular. So perpendicular means that the lines are going to cross, but when they cross at a right angle, which is a 90 degrees angle. And so the information we have for the black line is the same information, right? The equation and the slope is -2. And for this perpendicular line that we're looking for, all we know is that it passes through the point -3 and 4. So for perpendicular lines, they have negative reciprocals of each other. So just a quick review of what reciprocal means. If I had the number a half, the reciprocal means to flip this over. So you're going to have 2 over 1. But if we say negative reciprocal, then we have to add the negative in there. So my slope here would be -2. Okay, so basically you flip it over and you change the sign. Let me do another one here. So if I had m is equal to -6, then the reciprocal, negative reciprocal would be to flip the fraction here. So we would get 1/6 and change the sign because negative and negative would be positive. So we would be looking at this. Okay. So let's work it out for this problem. So my slope for the black line is -2. So I'm going to flip it over. So now it's a half. Since this was negative, now it's going to be a positive. So we'll be using -3 and m equals a half. Okay, so same process. Again, you can use either method. So y minus 4 is equal to the slope of a half. X minus -3. Simplify. So negative negative is positive. And then we're going to distribute the half. So 1/2 x, 1/2 x, and then 1/2 times 3 is half. And then we're going to add the 4. Okay, so I added the 4 here. In order to add 3 halves and a 4, we need a common denominator, which is going to be 2. So in order to have a 2 here, and let me just write that down. So if you have 4 over 1 and you want to make it into 2, we can multiply this by 2. But whatever I do down here, I have to do on the top because 2 divided by 2 is 1, and we're not changing the problem, right? So 8 divided by 2 is still 4. Okay, so now we have the same denominators. So we can add the numerators. So we get 3 plus 8 is 11. So we're going to have 11 halves. And so that was the last example. Um, I just want to thank everybody that's here today. And one of the of Friday Happy Math Hour is that after each session, if you have questions, then you can stay here. And we have tutors available to help you in more detail if you have questions on your homework, for example. All you have to do is just put in the chat and say, I would like to see a tutor. And then what happens is you and the tutor will go to another room and they will help you in that room. And so every week we have different topics. So we select them based on what's supposed to be covered for that week. And these recordings will go, they'll be available. And in a little bit, I'll let Miss Patricia tell you how you can access them. For those of you that are watching this at a different time other than Friday at 3 p.m., for this problem here, um, you'll be asked to do a survey. And so for that survey, you'll just need to write in the answer for this question. Oops. Let me just go back. One more. Just write the answer that you get for this question in that survey. And so the link for that survey has been posted in the chat, I think. If not, can somebody post it on the chat? And so there's the link so that you can, the other thing about the link is we ask that you enter your name, your ID, your instructor's name, because some instructors give extra credit for attending. And so we will give them a report of people who have attended in case you are getting credit as either tutoring, extra credit, or it might be part of your course to have extra hours for tutoring. And also to provide feedback for us so that we can improve on the sessions or keep whatever is working. So I want to thank everybody. If you have any questions, we're still going to be here for a few minutes. Patricia, do you want to talk about how they can access this at a later time?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so for this semester, we're going ahead and we've been posting it on the YouTube channel. Let me go ahead and share that tab for you guys so you can see it on there. So El Paso Community College has a YouTube channel for Tohono virtual events. In front of each one of them, it'll tell you about what it's about. So we have our student success series, careers, degrees. And so for this particular session, it will have Happy Math Hour in front of it if you want to access it at a later time. But they are all there and they all contain closed captioning as well. And then I will stop sharing real quick. And then I also believe that Raphael has some information for you guys as well for closing the show. But before he does, I wanted to let everyone know in the chat a little bit, if you scroll up a little bit, there is a link to download the online assistance PDF. It has already been updated for the summer session. So I strongly recommend you take a download of it. It's also been sent out in the community announcements. So if you did not attend the session or you can't find the link, you can search your email for it. And it has all the different tutoring providers there for you, as well as their new hours of operation for over the summer. And then we would also like to invite you to Monday's event. We're going to have a Sunday Summer Mondays. And so first Summer Sunday, boy, that's a mouthful. Summer Mondays. We're going to be having a Tohono virtual event at Mondays at 1 o'clock. And everyone is invited to it, so we strongly recommend you attend. This particular Monday, I'm so sorry, we will be covering, thank you so much, we will be covering online assistance for all. And so we'll be having a talk with Student Success Tutoring, BRAP, SSSP, Writing Center, EPCC Libraries, and CSD. It will be quick, it will be brief, but you will get the information you need along with their hours and what you need for their program. We also will be here next week with Ms. Chuka and Mr. Ozasi and Mr. Carrizales for evaluating combination of functions and composite functions for Math 1314. And then Math 1324, writing exponential equations into logarithmic form, solving exponential and logarithmic equations. Thank you very much for attending today. And like I said, if you need some help, please let us know in the chat. We have tutors standing by. Thank you and have a wonderful day.